I love to see your frustrated face, but it's probably too pitiful, so I'll refrain. I know it's awkward to see you, so why don't you go hide in the bathroom? The woman on the phone laughs hysterically and mocks me. I hate this woman more than anyone in the world. No, in the entire universe. 13 years ago, this woman stole my husband from me. I want to cut ties with her, but it's quite difficult, because sadly, this woman is my own sister. I chuckled as I held the phone to my ear for a while after it was unilaterally disconnected. My name is Kate, a 37-year-old divorcee. My married life fell apart in just half a year, and it's all because of my sister with a rotten character. I have a fraternal twin sister. Her name is Carly. Our appearance is so identical that even longtime friends mistake us for each other. However, despite our similar looks, our personalities are completely different. I'm more on the quiet side, but Carly was an active class president type. I excel academically, while Carly has better athletic abilities. Carly has a personality of speaking her mind immediately. You manage to wear such tacky clothes so well. We have the same face, so people will think I'm the one who looks tacky. It's the worst. Our sisterly relationship is not as good as it seems. It's fine within the confines of our home, but trouble always seems to follow my sister Carly. Back in our student days, what's your deal, hitting on my boyfriend? I often found myself being confronted by girls from other schools on my way home. Of course, I had no personal connection to them. Ugh, not again, Carly. Whenever Carly developed an interest in someone, she would shamelessly pursue them, regardless of whether they already had a girlfriend. I do think men can be awful, but my sister is the worst. And here I am, mistaken for her, suffering the consequences. What's more, she easily grows bored and breaks up with them, sometimes within just a week. It's truly exasperating. Carly, can't you stop this already? Don't you think about the feelings of the other person's girlfriend? And I'm also bothered by all of this. In response to my words, I'm afraid of the cynicism of unattractive women. Well, what about your man, Murphy, right? He's so plain, and I don't think there's any worry of him cheating. You can relax. He's out of the question for me. She proceeded to belittle my boyfriend. This man, Murphy, is the despicable ex-husband who callously abandoned me 13 years ago. We got to know each other at the same cram school and became close. He was more on the quiet side, and being with him brought me a sense of peace. His mother was a renowned fortune teller, running her own fortune-telling establishment. We graduated from the same university and decided to get married 2 years later. However, just 6 months after our marriage,
Please, just divorce me. I've reached my limit. You should know the reason, right?
He hands me the divorce papers. Sitting next to Murphy with a triumphant expression on her face is my sister, Carly. It all came as such a sudden shock. Huh? Sorry? I don't understand. Did I do something? I have no recollection. In response to my words, my husband slams the desk.
What? You've been cheating on me. Can you still say that, even after seeing this?
Among the several photos lined up on the desk, there were images of a man and a woman entering a hotel together, looking affectionate. But from my perspective, I was simply being shown pictures of my sister Carly entering a hotel with an unfamiliar man. I couldn't understand all the meaning behind Murphy's words. The man in the photos is probably just one of Carly's flings. No, this is Carly, it's not me. In that moment, my sister Carly bursts into tears. Kate, stop this. It's painful to deceive Murphy. To my sister's words, Murphy responds,
Carly, I'll be fine. You're so kind. Thank you.
What are we being shown here? My ex-husband glared at me tightly and began blathering on about a fictional story that never happened. Apparently, I was having an affair and threatened my sister because I didn't want to be found out. According to him, I borrowed clothes from my sister, disguising myself as her, and constantly engaged in hotel affairs with various partners. Such an outrageous woman, he claims. My ex-husband completely believes this absurd tale he heard from my sister.
I heard from Carly that you have always had a bad habit of being involved with multiple men. It seems you were even seeing other men while you were with me.
In response to my enraged ex-husband, "Hey, are you seriously saying that? Do you believe the stories of my sister, whom you've known for only about 6 months more than me, whom you've spent years with? Are you sane? Are you stupid?" My calm response seemed to displease him, as my ex-husband simply glared at me. "You claimed it was out of the question, but I never imagined you would go after Murphy."
Even though you have the same face, your personalities are completely different. Honestly, you lack charm. Carly would listen to my complaints with a smile. She was so endearing. Maybe I made a mistake in choosing you as my marriage partner.
He said such things. Carly, who continued to feign crying, had a smile on her face. As Carly became a working adult, her habit of being involved with men didn't change, but her criteria for targeting men has shifted compared to our student days. She prioritized status and money over appearance, and Murphy worked for a major company, and his family was reasonably well off. Perhaps she had her eyes on those factors from the time of our marriage proposal. It turns out that my ex-husband was completely fooled by my sister's poor acting skills. I couldn't believe that my former long-term partner could be so foolish, and I felt my feelings quickly cool down. You two are the worst, you know. Do whatever you want. Just never appear in front of me again. Tears threatened to fall, but I held them back desperately. I signed the divorce papers handed to me on the spot and slammed them back at the two of them. It's my sister who is the only one who has a devious mind. It seems she and Murphy haven't yet become involved romantically. Claiming alimony from him would also be challenging. However, if these two could disappear from my life, I no longer cared about money. Afterward, I returned to my parents' home, but they were furious at my sister's actions and declared their disownment. As for the reaction of the person in question, "Oh, whatever. If you ever need help with money, don't come to me or anything. Bye then." Even our own parents treated her with such disdain. I heard from a friend that my ex-husband and sister got married just 3 months after the divorce. I was so disgusted that I couldn't even cry. I didn't feel anything anymore. For the past 13 years, I haven't seen my sister and her husband. But one day I received a call on my phone from a payphone. Since it was work-related, I answered it. "Hello, Kate." I immediately recognized the voice on the other end of the line. "I don't know what kind of nerve you have to contact me." In response to my words, my sister Carly chuckled softly. "Are you still holding a grudge? You're still as gloomy as ever, Kate." "Well, never mind that. I have a favor to ask you." My sister continued talking without showing any remorse for the past. "I'm pregnant." "Huh?" "The father, of course, is Murphy, the one you loved so much. So I was thinking of announcing it to our parents, as it's their first grandchild. But I doubt those strict parents would listen if I told them directly. So tell them for me." She boldly gave me an order, even though she's been disowned. "And what makes you think you can say such audacious things when you've been cut off?" I retorted, but Carly had a comeback. "And what about you? How many years has it been since then?" "It's been 13 years. 13 years? I think you're the only one who still holds a grudge. You're probably still living alone in our parents' house, right? I'll be the one to show them a grandchild in your place." She mocked me. This girl is a genius when it comes to irritating people. I thought that while remaining silent, and then Carly continued. "I'd love to see your frustrated face, but I guess it's pitiful, so I'll refrain. It would be awkward to me, so why don't you hide in the bathroom or something?" She said that while laughing hysterically. And then, "I'll come over this weekend. Take care." With that, my sister unilaterally ended the call. I held the disconnected phone to my ear for a while and chuckled softly. On that weekend, while I was enjoying a quiet time at home, my smartphone rang. It was a call from a public telephone. I assumed it was my sister. Reluctantly, I answered the call. "Hey, unlock the call blocking already," she yelled. What's wrong with blocking calls from someone I don't want to hear from? Isn't that the purpose of call blocking? Oh, I see. Maybe you don't understand because you're not that bright. I chuckled in contempt. In response to her irritation, I heard a few cracking sounds over the phone. "I went through the trouble of coming here and no one's home? I told you I was coming today." Huh? Well, were you serious about that? I thought it was a joke. Besides, you unilaterally hung up the phone, so I didn't say anything, but I no longer live there. I could sense anger and slight agitation in my sister's voice as she spoke. It seemed like she was standing in front of our former house, although nobody lived there anymore. Thinking about the disturbance it would cause to the neighbors if she continued to create a scene, I gave her my current address and hung up the phone. After waiting for about an hour, the intercom rang, and when I answered it, Carly and my ex-husband Murphy were standing there with displeased faces. Carly immediately said, "Don't get too cocky. And what are you doing here? Why are you living in such a nice apartment?" She yelled at me with bloodshot eyes. It was understandable that my sister was surprised. This place was relatively new and was in good location. The rent was also decent. It wasn't a super luxurious apartment, but it was a nice property. Ignoring Carly's excitement, I said, "It's annoying and disruptive there, so why don't you come up?" I led them to my apartment, and Carly seemed surprised by the spaciousness. Seeing her frustrated expression, I couldn't help but chuckle. Inside the living room, our mother was sitting on the sofa silently observing my sister. Without uttering a word, she continued to gaze at Carly. "So you said you had something to discuss today, right? I'm not bothered by it, but if I'm in the way, should I hide in the bathroom?" I sarcastically remarked. "Never mind, I don't care anymore." Carly glared at me. And then she approached our mother and said, "Mom, it's been a while. I'm pregnant. That's why I wanted to talk today. I hope you'll let us stay here as a couple for a while." Without any sense of remorse for the past, my sister continued speaking. "Huh? You want me to live with you guys? No way, that's impossible. Have you forgotten what you did to me in the past? It's out of the question." Before I could finish my words, "Kate, just shut up. Besides, isn't this house still under Dad's name? You're an unmarried woman who couldn't even remarry at your age and are just leeching off our parents." Further adding insult to injury, "Thanks for your hard work until now. From now on, Murphy and I will take care of our parents' needs while living here together. Can you leave? And what about Dad? Is he at work?" My patience had reached its limit with my sisters smirking and laughing. However, it was our mother, who had been silently listening all along, who spoke up before me. "If it's about your father, he passed away." My mother muttered just those words. My parents are very serious people, and even though it was Carly, my sister, who was entirely at fault for the divorce 13 years ago, my parents have been apologizing to me all along, especially my father.
"I should have done better. It must have been my poor parenting. I'm sorry, Kate. I'm sorry." He became increasingly depressed to the point where it was difficult for him to continue working. During that time, both my father and mother were still in their early 50s, and our living expenses were supported by my income and my mother's part-time job. After a while, my father was diagnosed with cancer and passed away 10 years ago. Right before his passing, my father said, "Please, don't contact Carly about this. If she shows up at my funeral, I feel like I won't be able to go to heaven." True to his words, neither my mother nor I contacted my sister. We moved into this house about 5 years ago. It was because my mother's health deteriorated due to work-related strain. We considered renovating our family home, but it was located on a hill, and the act of climbing the slope with my mother's condition would have been difficult. That's why we decided to move to this wheelchair-accessible property. Since we started living here, my mother said that her mobility has improved significantly. I thought I was calmly explaining this matter, but when I recalled my father's presence before he passed away, tears welled up.
I believe my mother felt the same way. There were traces of tears in her eyes as well. However, my sister Carly's reaction to my story was, in a sense, as expected. Even if you tell me now, it's too late. And it's not my fault that Dad got sick, is it? Besides, you're able to live in such a nice place because of Dad's inheritance, right? It's unfair. What about my share? Don't I have the right to inherit too? Carly said these absurd things. Without missing a beat, Mother responded, Inheritance? There's no such thing. You only came crying to us when you got into trouble with your foolish actions before getting married. How many times did you have to pay alimony to the wives of the married men you got involved with? Living with someone who strayed from a right path like you? This is no joke. Don't you dare mock us. It was the first time both my sister and I had witnessed Mother in such a furious state. Perhaps realizing the tense atmosphere, my sister fell completely silent. And then Murphy, my former husband, who had been quiet like a doll until then, spoke up.
Carly, maybe you've been deceiving me all along. My life has been a mess since I married you. You're reckless with money and don't do any housework. I had the chance to meet someone from our high school and they all warned me not to marry you, the twin sister. They said it was a terrible idea. I nearly burst out laughing at my ex-husband's words. It's quite something that he managed to stay married to her for 13 years. Furthermore, he approached me and said, Kate, I've regretted our separation for a long time. Would you consider starting over together here? Let's let bygones be bygones. As he said that, he gently reached out to touch my shoulders, sending shivers down my spine. No way, it's disgusting. Let bygones be bygones? Who are you kidding? And it's not something you should be saying in the first place. Just as I was about to deflect his touch, the door of the adjacent room swung open forcefully. Could you please not touch her with your dirty hands? Suddenly a man appeared, surprising both of them with wide-eyed astonishment. Who's that? Ignoring my sister's mutter, I said, I told you to stay hidden and not get involved. In response to my words, Richard said, I had to intervene because he was about to touch you, Kate. Besides, having a third party present can help with the discussion. That might be true, but... This is my husband, Richard. And also, Ryan, come here. This is my 8-year-old son, Ryan. I called out to my son, who had been peeking from the shadow of the door. He stared at my sister and her husband with a piercing gaze as if he had overheard some of their argument. Huh? You got remarried? That's unbelievable. Why? My sister was more surprised than anyone to learn that I had a husband and a son. Murphy, my ex-husband, also seemed to be at a loss for words, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Why? How many years do you think have passed since then? It's been 13 years. 13 years! Even though so much time has passed, you two haven't changed a bit. It's astonishing. Oh well, at least you've aged significantly in appearance. My sarcastic words made their faces turn red. I met my current husband, Richard, shortly after my father passed away. We worked together and met a few times a year, but one day he asked me out. I said, I'm a divorcee. When I declined, he asked me again, saying, Does being divorced mean you can't be happy? A year later, we got married, and the following year, our son Ryan was born. My husband treated my mother very well, and he never showed any reluctance towards living together. Perhaps it was because his parents, my in-laws, were already living with his brother and sister-in-law. I feel relieved because you're with Richard, she said, showing her support. Richard suggested moving to our current house because he was worried about my mother's mobility. Facing the two standing still, I said, My mother and I have our current life. Please, don't interfere. And Carly, you claimed to be pregnant. How many months along are you? Seeing the flustered reactions of the two, it seemed that the pregnancy was also a lie. Although Murphy and I were only married for half a year, I never got pregnant. That became a reason for my ex-mother-in-law to make snide remarks. And the fact that my sister isn't pregnant means that's how it is, I suppose.
It seems that my sister and my ex-mother-in-law, both having a bad nature, got along well. Unable to withstand the harsh stares from our family, the two of them left the house as if fleeing.
I've heard the story, but is she really your biological sister? Her face does resemble yours, but her character is something else entirely. Anyway, I guess this settles the matter.
Speaking with a smile, my husband said that. I'm not so sure, I replied with a wry smile. That evening, something happened. The intercom kept ringing continuously. Looking at the monitor, I sighed. I knew they'd come. When I opened the door, there stood my pale-faced sister and my ex-husband. I need your help. I need money. Please, lend me money. They pleaded desperately. My husband wore a puzzled expression, but my mother and I had a different reaction. During the day, while waiting for my sister's call, my mother received a message from someone. It was from a friend of my late father's who currently lives in my former parents' house, which is now rented out to their family. When they returned home, they had found the garden flower beds trampled and the window glass cracked. The security camera captured the image of a furious woman stomping on the flower beds and hurling stones at the glass. Of course, it is my sister Carly who is furious on the phone with me. When my mother shared my sister's contact information with our friend, he learned that my sister had been the one who had caused his dear friend, my father, years of suffering, and this enraged him. Among the damaged plants, there were reportedly precious flowers that were difficult to follow. It seems he also demanded compensation for the damages. I anticipated their reappearance due to their evident financial difficulties and struggles with housing, but I never imagined they would show up on that particular day. I was impressed by their energy. I can give you the money if you want, but there is a condition. Afterwards, as I watched the two of them dejectedly walking away, I couldn't help but laugh and say, "Serves you right." In my hand, I held the freshly signed agreement. As a condition for taking on this matter on their behalf, I made them sign a pledge to never approach us again. Still, Carly is my blood-related sister. Cutting ties with her completely is difficult. There might come a time when she will try to approach us again using this privilege. At that time, I'm prepared to fight, whether it be in court or anywhere else, using the secretly recorded audio from 13 years ago and this incident. That's how determined I am not to forgive my sister and her husband in the future. I later heard from a friend that my ex-husband quit his job at a major company right after divorcing me and started working as a staff member at the fortune-telling establishment managed by my former mother-in-law. He and my sister seemed to live a luxurious life with a high salary because they were relatives. However, a few months ago, my former mother-in-law suddenly passed away due to illness. My ex-husband took over as the successor, but he had no talent for fortune-telling. The fortune-telling establishment quickly became deserted. In a panic, my sister and her husband. This is a bracelet made with heartfelt intentions by our late mother. It seems they started a business telling lies to the people who had faith in the late mother-in-law. However, their lies were exposed through internal whistleblowing, and now a victims association has been established. The fortune-telling establishment is being inundated with victims every day as it served as their workplace and residence. With nowhere else to go, my sisters sought refuge in our home. It's absolutely audacious and infuriating. However, considering the police's recent actions, it's only a matter of time before the two of them face legal consequences. After that, we moved again. It was due to my husband Richard's job transfer. Am I really allowed to come along? With an apologetic look, my mother asked.
What are you saying? You are a cherished member of our family. Even if you resist, I'll carry you forcefully and take you with us.
My husband Richard joked and laughed. Thank you. She shed tears of gratitude. Grandma is crying again. Here, take this tissue. While Ryan, my son, chuckled and expressed concern over my mother's easily moved nature, I watched the scene of my family with a sense of gratitude for the happiness I currently had.
Hey, when are you going to transfer the money? Send me $10,000 right now.
That's what my mother-in-law said on the phone. I'm in the middle of my husband's funeral. That's none of my business. She told me to transfer the money immediately. I ignored her and hung up the phone, and she came directly to me. But she was surprised. What the hell is this? My name is Stephanie. I am a 34-year-old office worker. I'm currently dating someone. His name is Alfred, and he is the same age as me. I met him through work. He works for a client of the company I worked for, and we often do business with each other. Basically, we had a serious business conversation. We were both serious about our work. But then he would unexpectedly throw in some of his jokes. It was funny, and we would laugh with each other. Of course, we were doing our jobs properly, but one of us makes a joke at the right moment, and the atmosphere instantly relaxes, and the deal proceeds in a rather good state. It was a drinking party that brought us close together. There was a time when the companies where my husband and I both work had a large-scale project. Of course, my husband and I participated in the project, as did many other employees. We all worked together to make the project a success, and a big party was held as part of the action. We exchanged personal contact information, and we started to keep in touch with each other, going out for drinks, going out on dates, and so on. We have been dating for about 2 years now, and we are still in love and have fun every day. We're both independent because we both focus on our jobs, and I think we have a good chemistry. Then one day, he proposed to me. I can't imagine my future with anyone but you. You're such a part of my life now. Will you marry me? Yes, I'd love to. And so we are married. I'm so happy that I was going to marry the man I love. After that, we went to meet each other's parents. And he looked a little unhappy. What's wrong? Did something happen? No. Actually, there's something I wanted to tell you. I've explained to you before that my parents are divorced, right? I've actually been sending money to my mom every month since I started working for the company. I see. Oh, yeah, about 1,000 a month. What? That much? Yeah. But of course I'm not going to bother you after we're married. Since we're going to live together as a couple, I thought I should let you know in advance. I see. He only briefly explained that his parents are divorced due to his mother's infidelity. His father took him in. Even so, he still saw his mother sometimes and kept in touch with her after he entered the workforce. His mother has asked him to send money to her because she is now single and has a hard time making ends meet. Even though his mother betrayed them, he stayed with her until he was in the 3rd grade of junior high school, and his mother used to cook and feed him every day, raising him with love and care. When I was playing softball, she always came to watch our team practice. She prepared orange juice for everyone and drove us to the games. My dad was too busy with work to spend time on those things, so I owe a lot to my mom. People might say that his bad situation where he is being robbed, but still he was treated well by his mother in the past. He feels he owes his mother a debt of gratitude and wants to repay it. That's why he keeps sending money to her. Thank you for telling me in advance. I'll do what I can to help. Thank you, Stephanie. I was surprised by his story, but I still wanted to respect his wishes as much as I could. Fortunately, I also make a good amount of money. He says he won't bother me, but if it comes to it, I'm willing to pay for it. Then I went with him to his mother's house to tell her of our marriage. Alfred, it's been a long time. Hi, Mom. So, that's your fiancé. Nice to meet you. I'm Stephanie. Alfred is being very good to me. His mother was very nice. Alfred is finally getting married. I was worried because he never talked about it. Stephanie, thank you for marrying my son. Mom, don't make it sound like you were taking pity on me. Oh, because when I was your age, you were already in the 9th grade. That's a pretty late marriage for me. His mother had Alfred when she was 19, according to the story. She's 53 now, so she looks very young. Well, she seemed to spend a lot of money on beauty, so she looks young. But after I met his mother, I went to see his father. His father was a very serious and sincere man, and I thought that Alfred was like his father. After meeting with each other's parents, we started making preparations for the wedding. However, when I sent the wedding invitation to his mother, it came back circled as absent.
Why aren't you gonna be there, Mom?
He asked immediately on the phone.
Because that man is coming too, right? I can't go.
By that man, I mean his father. Well, they're divorced because of her infidelity. So it's natural that he is difficult to meet. I thought it was a little suspicious because she refused to attend the meeting with both of our families. In the end, no matter how much he tried to convince her, his mother didn't want to come to the wedding. Then he and I got married. It was a very happy and joyful wedding with many people celebrating. His mother did not come to the wedding in the end, but we received a congratulatory message. Then Alfred and I started living together. We worked together and shared the housework, and I think we have a good balance in our lives. He was raised by his father since high school, so he himself was often in charge of cooking. So he can cook well and has a lot of dishes he can make. His cooking is very good, and I think he can cook some dishes better than me. And we had a good time on holidays, going on a trip or drive. My husband continued to send money to my mother-in-law even after our marriage. Basically, the monthly remittance was about $1,000. But apparently, my mother-in-law had recently injured her back and became unable to work. Therefore, my husband received a call from her asking him to increase the amount of money he sends home. He was worried about my mother-in-law, so he decided to increase the remittance. Therefore, he increased it from $1,000 to $1,500 a month. My husband works for a large company, and he has a high income. However, it must be quite difficult for him to send $1,500 a month to his mother. I decided to pay more for our living expenses. I worked hard, and my income was high, so it was no problem for me. But my mother-in-law got carried away and asked him to send more money.
It's a very hard life. I'm not working right now. You know that, right? I have to go to the hospital too. Maybe so, but I can't afford to send more money either. Are you saying you're abandoning your mother? No, that's not what I'm... Then send more money to me for my sake.
My mother-in-law begged my husband repeatedly, and he ended up increasing her allowance to $2,000. It was okay to send her money up until then, but now I think she's asking too much. Well, he still owes his mother for raising him, and she said she had no one else to rely on, so my husband couldn't give up on my mother-in-law, although he was worried about it. So my husband worked hard at his job and got a promotion as a result. This has helped to raise her salary, and for the time being, life has not been so difficult. However, I thought that we would be able to afford it if we could reduce the amount of money we send home. So my husband and I went to my mother-in-law's house to ask her to reduce her allowance.
Oh, Alfred and Stephanie, what's up?
My mother-in-law greeted us with a smile. But when we went to talk to her about reducing her allowance, she immediately became grumpy.
What? Why?
Well, it turns out that $2,000 is a little too much, so...
You don't care what happens to your mother? I knew you would take his side. I'm not taking his side or anything, you know? Then why don't you help me?
We have our own life. We might have a baby. We want to save as much money we can for when that happens.
Instead of something that you are unsure of, shouldn't you be helping people in need now instead? I'm in financial trouble.
That's how my mother-in-law insisted. You said you have back pain. I think you can do at least some desk job.
I already told you I can't work. So help me.
This is how angry my mother-in-law is. My husband and I were both exhausted by the situation. Is there any way out of this? I decided to go to the bathroom for a change. It was then that I noticed that the door to the room next to the bathroom was slightly ajar. I glanced in, and there was something that surprised me. What is that? I glanced toward it. At least she didn't notice. I quietly went into the room and took pictures of what was inside. Then, I went to the bathroom and came back to the living room, pretending that nothing happened. In the end, our attempt to reduce her allowance failed because my mother-in-law did not approve of it. After we returned home, I showed the picture to my husband.
Could this be my mom's room?
Actually, it was just open when I went to the bathroom, and I took photos of some things from there. Would you look at this one? And this one.
What?
Aren't these all brand name stuff? That's right. And they're all new releases.
So you're saying my mom was a lot of brand name stuff?
I guess so. My husband was red-faced and angry.
I was sending money to mom because she was having a hard time making ends meet. I guess that means she's spending all this money I was sending her. I can't forgive her. I won't send money to her anymore.
It's only natural that he would say that. My husband was sending money to my mother-in-law to protect her livelihood, not to allow her to live extravagantly. I agreed with him. Soon after that, he stopped sending money to her. Then, as expected, my husband received 2 phone calls from my mother-in-law.
Hey, I haven't received this month's payment yet. What's going on? Mom, I won't send money anymore. What? What are you doing? I'm saying I can't do it anymore. If you don't like it, stop being extravagant and sell your brand name goods.
My husband said and hung up. Then my mother-in-law came to our house.
Send me money. I only bought them because they happened to be on sale. There were many other brand name items. Anyway, I'm not sending you any more money. So please go home.
My husband kicked her out without question. But after that, my mother-in-law kept coming back to ask for money. So we decided to move out.
I can't trust her anymore.
I didn't think she was that bad. She was so persistent that we hired a detective agency to investigate her. Then we found out a surprising fact. My husband was completely fed up with my mother-in-law. So we moved out of the house so that my mother-in-law would not assault us. Soon after that, my mother-in-law called me. My husband had already blocked her calls, so now she was coming to me. Then my husband and I came up with an idea. A few days later, I finally answered my mother-in-law's phone.
Hey, when are you going to transfer the money? Do you know how many months it's been?
5 months. 5 months. How can you expect us to send you $2,000 a month for 5 months?
Send me $10,000 quickly.
I then told my mother-in-law. I'm in the middle of my husband's funeral.
What? Funeral?
Yes. My husband just recently passed away. Then my mother-in-law said something surprising.
That's none of my business.
What? Just transfer the money. Are you really saying that? Is money more important than your son's funeral?
Of course. Money is more important.
Even though you had an affair, he felt indebted to you for raising him, so he sent money to you even after he entered the workforce. He also told me about the time when he played softball. He said that you always drove the car and supported his team at practices and games. When I explained this, my mother-in-law snickered.
He had it all wrong. I wasn't doing it for him. It was because the coach of the softball team at the time was a good-looking guy his age. He didn't know it, but the coach and I were having an affair.
Oh no. I thought my mother-in-law was an arsehole. I don't care what you do, but can you please transfer the money to me as soon as possible? He was well paid and I'm sure he has a lot of money in his inheritance. Enough. We're in the middle of the funeral at a place called Madison Funeral Home. I will wire you the money. What? You don't have the authority to decide that. Just transfer the money. I ignored her and hung up. Then my mother-in-law came directly to me. Hey, I'm here because you didn't transfer the money. My mother-in-law came to me with a loud voice, and she was surprised with her eyes wide open. What? What does this mean? So you came. What? Afraid? And my mother-in-law looked around at the people there with a pale face. There were several people there, all of whom had been tricked by my mother-in-law into giving her money. I asked the detective agency to investigate, and they found out about that. And just recently, they had lost contact with my mother-in-law. And so, there was no way to get her to return the money. So my husband and I came up with a plan to call my mother-in-law here. I expected her to come to the funeral, but I didn't expect her to talk like that. As a result, my mother-in-law came, but the damage to my husband must have been immeasurable. However, my husband seemed to be rather relieved. I now understand that I was not important to my mother. So I'm going to stop caring about her too. I want you to give back the money you owe these people. And the money you took from us. That's impossible. Okay? Then we'll have to go to the police. The police?
Yes, because what you're doing is stealing.
Now you're moving in with some young guy and paying for him. That's what we found out. We can talk to that guy if you want. Don't bother Edward.
I feel sorry for you. You can either go to the police or you can give the money back. Just make a choice. My mother-in-law slumped down on the floor, her face pale. She finally gave up and chose to return the money. We all went to my mother-in-law's house to prevent her from running away and retrieved all the brand name goods. We immediately sold them and turned them into money. My mother-in-law first used the money to pay back the people to whom she owed money. But it was still not enough to cover the money that my husband had been sending her, so he contacted a certain person. It was my mother-in-law's brother. Her brother runs the family's auto body shop. We explained the situation to him and asked him to put my mother-in-law to work. He had always been very fond of my husband, and he always did whatever my husband asked. And this time, my mother-in-law had done something terrible. So he said that he is responsible for punishing his sister and forced her to come out and help him with the family business. My mother-in-law tried to escape many times and moved into her young boyfriend's house. When my husband and my mother-in-law's brother went to talk to the guy named Edward, he immediately threw my mother-in-law's belongings out of the house, saying that he didn't want such a troublesome old woman. To me, she was just like a matron who gave me money. My mother-in-law was shocked to hear that from the guy to whom she had paid a lot of money. So my mother-in-law's brother took her out and put her to work to make sure she couldn't run away from home. In exchange of giving my mother-in-law food and shelter, she made sure that all the money she earned went to my husband. Things are going well for now, but my husband and I will continue to keep a close eye on my mother-in-law because she might do something wrong in the future. I will continue to be close to my husband and spend happy days as a married couple.
When I walked into the house, my jaw dropped. Where's all the furniture? Even that really expensive bed is gone.
I've got a great taste, right?
I turned pale seeing my mother-in-law Brenda's self-satisfied expression. Brenda, did you do this?
Sure did. I thought it looked better in our place, so I had it moved over. After all, how does a part-timer like you get to live in such a swanky condo just because you're married to my son? You're here because of him. Step out of line and I'll make sure the two of you split up. Got it? I tried to hold back my rage as I said, "Do you realize what you've done?" "What do you mean?" "This isn't my apartment, and that furniture wasn't mine." "Wait, what?" Nick and I had been an item for some time. From our college days, he'd shower me with gifts, not just on special days, but anytime he felt like it.
Just wanted to make you smile,
He'd say, giving me a shy grin. It was one of the things I loved about him. Post-graduation, we tied the knot. We were the first in our friend group to do so, and the celebration was epic. It truly felt like the peak of happiness. Both of us had steady jobs, but after the wedding, Nick proposed I leave mine.
I want to be the breadwinner. Just take care of the home and be there when I get back.
The idea might have been a bit traditional, but I wasn't opposed to it. So I gave up my job, focusing on homemaking and eagerly waiting his return each day. But even with a spotless home, I had a lot of free time. Our place was a modest rental. Nick, being accustomed to a lavish lifestyle, sometimes felt it was a bit tight, but he understood I wanted to save, especially in the beginning. I adored our quaint starter home, but then one evening he showed me a listing of a luxury condo in our area, with rent nearly 10 times what we were paying. From the pictures, it looked worth the price, but with such a rent, we'd end up not having enough for a dinner like tonight.
Isn't this place awesome? We'd have a way better life there, right?
I see your point, but that rent's super high. I genuinely like where we are now.
This place is better suited as storage. It's way too tight for us, but don't sweat the cash, I've got it covered.
I thought our current place was way bigger than just a storage space, but I recognized we had different viewpoints on money ever since college. Seeing how much he wanted the change, I finally caved. Okay, if you're really set on it, let's do it. But I'd like to work part-time. I want to help out, at least a little. I promise I'll always be back in time to cook, and it'll help me stay busy. Sound good? Even considering his hefty paycheck, I wasn't sure about managing the increased rent. There had to be another income stream, but it still gave me jitters. After I got the green light from Nick to work part-time, I came home one day to find him wrapping up our rental agreement on the phone. Once all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed, we made our move at the end of that month. While we hauled over everything from our old place, a few rooms in our new home remained bare. At first, the steep rent had me doing a double take, but the sheer size and coziness of our new place soon had me daydreaming about our life there. Not long after we settled in, Brenda, Nick's out-of-state mom, decided to pay a visit. To be honest, I never warmed up to her. From our engagement days, she's been kind of frosty with me. Maybe she thought I was stealing her baby boy. It seemed like she had a master's degree in finding faults, and she didn't hold back in our new home either. So, you got this swanky place and it's still not up to snuff. I understand you're used to smaller places, but my son deserves better. Can't you keep things neat? She went full-on soap opera star, doing the dust check routine and even going through our fridge. Nick mentioned your new part-time job, grinding all those hours for a mere $450. Instead of burning time, you could be primping up at a spa or something. You're strange. Clearly, Nick got his penchant for splurging from her. I mean, sure, if I were loaded, I'd be all over spa days and shopping sprees. But I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet, not just rely on his bankroll. I felt splurging should come from my hard-earned cash. Trying to get that across to Brenda was like talking to a wall. I usually just responded to her with a tight-lipped smile. When I turned to Nick for a little backup, he just brushed it aside, taking his mom's side. The whole thing started eating at me. Brenda became a regular, showing off and constantly digging at me. She'd never been keen on our old place, but with this upgrade, she paraded around like she owned the place. I was getting tired of her drop-ins. When I subtly mentioned she might be overdoing her visits, she let loose. I'm Nick's mom. He owns this place, so it's totally normal for me to be here. But you? Not so much. Have you seen your classy neighbor? Makes you look bad. Can't believe my son's stuck with you. She kept it up till Nick walked in. Hey Nick, sorry, but I couldn't get dinner ready. Mind if you and your mom get something delivered? I need some air.
Instead of understanding, he just snapped. Really? What were you up to all day? Mom's just looking out for you. Try being a little more appreciative. All I said was, I'm spending tonight elsewhere. There was a decent hotel close by that didn't break the bank. Even though I looked pretty drained, Nick didn't bat an eye, choosing instead to chat with his mom about what to get for the delivery. I just needed to breathe. Coming back the next day around lunch, the entrance was clear of shoes, both Nick's and Brenda's. Looked like she'd finally cleared out. I let out a sigh since I had been prepping myself for another round of her critiques. But heading to the bedroom, I was floored. Where the heck was our bed? My mind raced to a possible break-in, but everything else was in place. Who'd just swipe a fancy bed and nothing else? On a hunch, I called Brenda, wondering if she knew something. Without batting an eye, she copped to it.
So, problem? That bed was too high-end for someone like you. I did you a favor. It was in decent shape. I'll ship you my old one, a tad warm, but more your speed. Her smirk was almost palpable over the phone, and that was the last straw for me. I replied to her snide remarks with a big smile. I don't need such trash. Why don't you get rid of it at yourself? And you just take things without saying sorry? She snapped back. Who do you think you are talking to me like that? People always say you act so stuck up. Is that why nobody likes you? I replied, say whatever you like, but I want the bed back. She quickly said, whatever you own, Nick does too, so I can use it unless he has an issue. I calmly corrected her. The bed isn't actually ours. She was clearly shocked. What are you talking about? I broke the news to Brenda. I'm leaving Nick. So, you finally get it. I've moved all my stuff to my new place. That bed's a rental. You rented such a fancy bed? You're something else, taking advantage of Nick. He picked out that bed, not me. He always had to have the best. I then gave her some insight into her son's reality. From his college days, Nick lived on borrowed cash. He might have acted rich, but he was just careless with money. Even though his parents were well off, his own salary barely covered our living expenses. He'd always been borrowing or gambling away money. And yet, he insisted on fancy weddings and luxurious apartments. The bed? He rented that too. Nick's always been obsessed with the idea of seeming rich. He wanted me to stay home just to keep up appearances. Remember when you mentioned the stylish lady next door? Nick told me I should act more like her so he doesn't lose face. He said it with the same smile he'd use when buying me gifts. That day, I decided enough was enough and contacted a lawyer for the divorce. Well, thanks for everything, Brenda. That bed wasn't cheap. The rental company will bill you. Brenda, in a panic, replied, This is your fault. You should have told me. Come back and deal with it. This isn't a request, it's an order. You're still his wife. Not for much longer. To me, you're practically a stranger now, and if you're planning to come over again, you might want to make it quick. Given Nick's debts, this plate might not be ours for long. She was so shocked she dropped the call. I didn't bother waiting, just blocked her number. Alrighty, that should clear the air before the divorce. With that, I left Nick's place. I later heard he had been evicted. He bragged about paying everything off with his huge salary, but it was bound to happen. He moved into a tiny apartment way smaller than our first place. All his friends who lent him money abandoned him, and he was drowning in debt. Brenda, for all her airs, ended up having to buy the bed she took since it was damaged. The price? A cool $6,700. Even she distanced herself from her own son once she found out about his lies. He had lied about working for a top-tier company with a high salary. He'd been sending his parents $2,000 every month, all borrowed or gambled money. Once Brenda found out, she recognized his pathological need to show off and distanced herself. I might have a pleasant chat with her now, but I sure don't want to hear that voice again. Last I heard, Nick's all alone, cut off by family and friends. As for me and my modest new place, I admire my tiny cactus by the window. Even if I'm just working part-time and funds are tight, I plan to work full-time soon and save up. I'm content with the simple things in life, like finding joy in the little cactus. After all the drama, I felt relieved with my decision. Tonight, I might treat myself to some takeout. It's moments like these that make everything worth it. I excitedly looked for some food options, feeling lighter than I had in a long time.